Why would an urban center rise high within the Andean interior, far from coastlines and great rivers, yet still shape an entire landscape through terraces, plazas, and careful regional planning? High in the central Andes, broad valleys open between mountain ridges that stretch endlessly along the horizon. Winds move across grasslands. Narrow streams descend from snow-fed slopes and disappear into dry ground below. The air is thin and bright, and the terrain shifts constantly between steep hillsides and wide open plains. Within this vast environment lies Huaca Pampa. From a distance, the site appears subtle. Low stone walls cross the land in long lines. Terraces step gently along the slopes. Rectangular compounds sit quietly against the hills, their outlines softened by centuries of weather. But when seen from above, the design becomes unmistakable. Huaca Pampa was not scattered randomly across the valley. Its structures follow patterns, ordered spaces arranged with intention across the highland terrain. Terraces shape the slopes into stable platforms. Roads and open plazas connect clusters of buildings. Agricultural land and administrative spaces appear woven together across the landscape. The surrounding mountains provided both protection and challenge. Water arrived only through narrow streams flowing from higher elevations. Soil could easily erode if left unmanaged. Steep hills limited where settlements could expand. To create stability here required careful adaptation. Stone terraces were built into the slopes, forming horizontal layers that slowed erosion and allowed crops to grow where steep ground would normally prevent cultivation. Retaining walls held soil in place while guiding rainfall downward through controlled channels. Across the valley floor, compounds and plazas formed the core of the settlement. These spaces were not isolated dwellings, but part of a larger layout, one that suggests coordination across an entire region. Huaca Pampa appears to have functioned not only as a settlement, but as a center where landscape, agriculture, and administration were brought together. Yet the design raises an enduring question. Why was such a carefully planned urban center established here in this high Andean valley? And how did its terraces and compounds shape the surrounding region? To understand Huaca Pampa, the mountains around it must first be understood. Because in the Andes, landscapes are never passive. They are partners in the creation of cities. The valley surrounding Huaca Pampa is shaped by steep slopes and narrow waterways descending from higher peaks. In the Andes, rainfall arrives unevenly. Some seasons bring heavy storms, while others pass with long stretches of dry wind and cloudless sky. For a settlement to grow in such a place, the land itself must be reshaped. Across the hillsides surrounding Huaca Pampa, terraces step downward in long, horizontal layers. Each terrace is held in place by stone retaining walls, carefully fitted against the slope. Behind these walls, soil was gathered and leveled, creating stable ground where crops could grow. These terraces served several purposes at once. They slowed the movement of rainwater, preventing sudden erosion during storms. They also captured moisture in the soil, allowing plants to survive in a climate where water could quickly disappear into the dry earth. The result was a landscape transformed. Steep hillsides that once shed water rapidly became productive layers of farmland. Crops could grow across multiple elevations, each terrace adjusting to sunlight, wind, and moisture in slightly different ways. Below the terraces, the urban core of Huaca Pampa spread across the valley floor. Here, architecture followed a more geometric pattern. Rectangular compounds enclosed open courtyards. Stone walls formed long corridors and boundaries that organized movement across the settlement. Plazas opened between these structures, creating gathering spaces where the surrounding mountains remained visible in every direction. Paths connected these compounds to agricultural terraces on the slopes. Trails extended outward toward neighboring valleys, linking Huaca Pampa with distant communities across the Andean highlands. The city did not stand alone. Instead, it appears to have functioned as a regional node, a place where resources, movement, and communication converged. From the terraces above, the view would have revealed an ordered landscape, fields layered along the hillsides, compounds arranged across the valley floor, pathways leading outward through mountain passes. Yet even within this carefully organized design, questions remain. Why was such a structured center established deep within this highland environment? And what role did Huaca Pampa play in shaping the surrounding region? As Huaca Pampa developed across the valley, its layout became increasingly structured. The terraces along the slopes were not isolated farming plots, but part of a broader landscape system. Agricultural space, architectural compounds, and open plazas were arranged together, forming a coordinated environment shaped by both terrain and design. From above, the organization becomes clearer. Terraces follow the natural curves of the hillsides, stepping downward toward the valley floor. At the base of these slopes, the settlement spreads outward in clusters of rectangular compounds built from stone and earth. Each compound encloses interior courtyards, while narrow passages connect them to wider plazas and pathways. Movement through the site appears deliberate. Paths guide travelers between compounds, across terraces, and toward the surrounding hills. Some routes extend outward through nearby valleys, linking Huaca Pampa to a broader network of highland settlements. In this way, the city seems positioned not simply for local activity, but for coordination across a wider region. The architecture reflects this role. Large open plazas sit at the center of the settlement, framed by surrounding structures. These spaces would have allowed groups to gather while maintaining clear lines of movement through the site. The layout suggests planning that balanced accessibility with organization. Agriculture remained closely tied to this design. Terraces above the city likely supported crops adapted to high-altitude conditions. Water from seasonal rainfall could be directed downward across the slopes, nourishing multiple layers of farmland before reaching the valley floor. Yet even a system this carefully arranged required constant attention. Terrace walls had to be repaired after heavy rains. Soil needed to be redistributed as erosion slowly reshaped the slopes. Pathways required maintenance to remain passable through shifting terrain. For generations, the balance between settlement and landscape appears to have held. But the Andes are never still. Climate, water flow, and regional networks can shift over time. And within the quiet geometry of Huaca Pampa, subtle signs suggest that this balance eventually began to change. Over time, the balance that shaped Huaca Pampa's landscape began to shift. The terraces still held the slopes, and the stone compounds continued to stand across the valley floor. But the quiet systems that sustained the settlement were gradually changing. Soil slowly moved along the hillsides. Rainfall patterns may have varied from year to year. Pathways connecting the valley to surrounding regions could shift as nearby landscapes evolved. In mountain environments, even small changes carry lasting effects. Terraces require continual care. Their retaining walls must be repaired after storms. Channels guiding rainwater must remain clear so that erosion does not undermine the soil behind them. Without steady attention, terraces can slowly weaken, and the land begins to reclaim the slopes. Archaeological traces at Huaca Pampa suggest that activity across the site gradually declined. Compounds that once enclosed organized spaces became quieter. Paths between terraces saw less movement. The settlement did not collapse suddenly or disappear through a single dramatic event. Instead, the valley seems to have entered a slower transformation. Fields once shaped carefully into terraces remained visible on the hillsides, but some may have been used less frequently over time. The compounds across the valley floor continued to stand, though the coordinated rhythm that once linked agriculture, movement, and administration appears to have faded. What remains today is a landscape where structure and nature exist side by side. Terrace walls still trace the contours of the mountains. Stone foundations outline compounds across the open plain. From the slopes above, the arrangement of the valley can still be seen, fields stepping downward toward the center, where the settlement once organized the region around it. And so, the original question returns. Why was such a carefully planned urban center established deep within the Andean interior? Huaca Pampa suggests an answer rooted in landscape itself. Here, terraces allowed steep slopes to support agriculture. The valley floor offered space for coordination and gathering. Paths through the mountains connected distant communities across the highlands. The city was not simply placed within this environment, it was built as part of it. Today, winds still move across the valley. Light shifts slowly across the terraces, and the quiet geometry of Huaca Pampa remains, a reminder that entire cities can grow from the careful shaping of land itself. If this exploration of Huaca Pampa's terraced landscape stayed with you, you're welcome to continue discovering more ancient places like this. And what do you think shaped this Andean center more? The mountains surrounding it, or the terraces carved into their slopes?